In the financial year 2019-2020, which is the last financial year we reported on as PSC, the total national revenue collection was about 1.7 trillion shillings in a budget of 3 trillion shillings. That obviously leaves you with a gap, a budget deficit of 1.3 trillion shillings or thereabout. Anybody in basic economics class will tell you that is not sustainable. And this house must do something about it. This house must do something about it. When our people say they can't afford basics like unga and so forth, don't we have the power, responsibility, and mandate to force the executive to act on those complaints? Are we that powerless to be sent by the people to speak and act for them only for us to do nothing? The last time in recent history that Parliament convened while dark clouds of uncertainty, doubts, and hunger hovered over the land was in the year 2018, in the midst of the post-election violence. That Parliament that opened on the 15th of January 2008 went down in history as the one that came up with a raft of decisive steps that restored hope among our people. Resuscitated the economy, strengthened existing institutions, and created new ones to improve governance. That Parliament laid ground for judicial reforms, police reforms, constitutional reforms, electoral reforms, truth, justice, and reconciliation, land reforms, and youth employment, among other progressive initiatives. Above all, the 10th Parliament gave the country a new constitution. What do we, the 13th Parliament, want to be remembered for, having come to office in times very similar to those of 2008? Do we want to be remembered as the assembly that saw suffering of the people and did nothing? Today, we have a situation, and I'm just concluding now. We have a situation where Parliament is being asked to originate legislation creating the office of the Leader of Opposition and allowing cabinet secretaries to attend House proceedings and answer questions from honorable members. Are we sure we want to be the assembly that could not take a stand whether we are a presidential or a parliamentary system? Can't we make up our minds for once? Because really, there seems to be consensus on some of these issues. Everybody seems to be agreeing that we need the office of Leader of Official Opposition. Everybody seems to be agreeing that we need cabinet secretaries to be in the House. Okay? Then why can't we just go the full hog and say we want parliamentary system and have cabinet ministers appointed amongst us? Why are we going for half measures? Why? Why? And if we want the office of the Leader of Official Opposition, and we also seem to want the office of the Prime Minister, both political formations, the major ones, this for now, we all agree that we need the office of the Prime Minister. Then why can't we go the full hog and review the Constitution and create that office as the head of government business in the National Assembly? Okay? I am very impressed that the doctrine of separation of powers features prominently in the seminar program. Our nation's political landscape demands constant engagement on the issue. The spirit inherent in this doctrine is to entrench division of government responsibilities between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, to inhibit concentration of power and provide for checks and balances. This is key to the proper functioning of democratic system of governance. Indeed, the Constitution clearly assigns specific roles to the different arms of government. However, in the execution of the roles, None of the arms can operate in isolation. It behoves the 13th Parliament to assert its independence while maintaining good working relations with the other arms of government. Strangulation of the judiciary and Parliament by the executive is inimical to the democratic culture that we are trying to cultivate in the country under the new constitutional dispensation. We cannot end this seminar, very finally, without addressing the issue of IEBC. Today, just like in the election of 2007, I know I may be touching a wrong up, but our leaders need to talk. Today, just like in the election of 2007, the integrity of the IEBC is being put to question. There are serious doubts about IEBC's future capacity to deliver credible elections. The very existence of IEBC is in doubt. We have earned the dubious distinction as a country whose electoral body was split into two at a most crucial phase of its undertakings. We cannot therefore afford to approach the sensitive tasks of reconstituting the IEBC in a business as usual manner. Do we want to simply aim at scoring political points in this delicate exercise? Or do we want to be the assembly that put Kenya family on the path of credible elections managed by a respected institution that enjoys the support of Kenyans across the political divide? Can't we be the house that solved with finality the problems that deny credibility to this institution that is so critical to political management of our country? As I finish now, I want to refer you to St. Paul's letter to Galatians. Just listen to me. St. Paul, in his letter to Galatians, if you go to chapter 3, verse 1, Paul is really exhorting the Galatians. Indeed, he is rebuking them. Oh, you foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Yet you know clearly that Jesus Christ died for your sins, and we are going back to the law of Moses. This letter was written, I think, in the 1st century after Christ. And St. Paul, or Apostle Paul, could as well have been speaking to Kenyans in the 21st century. That we know our problems, we know what should be done, and yet we decided to differ on how to do it, simply to score political points. St. Paul must have been addressing us. With all those very many remarks, thank you, honorable colleagues, and may the Almighty God take care of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wandai, for that passionate speech. But I think you need to remember that St. Paul was also speaking to you. And I hope that you shall heed. One would be mistaken to think that we have forgotten that this is a post-election seminar. And if you look at your programs, the issues relating to oversight raised by Honorable Opiyo, issues relating to budget, and issues relating to separation of powers and relations with the judiciary are topics for the next 3 days when we shall be here. We shall have an opportunity as honorable members to address them and conclusively reach a consensus on those points. And I have no doubt that after that, Honorable Opiyo will rewrite his speech. On the matter of IEBC, that again is something that the members shall have an opportunity to deal with. Okay, members, we have an opportunity to look into that. And now, without further ado, I'd like to invite the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, MGH MP and Leader of Majority. Karibu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Your Excellency the President, His Excellency the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, our Governor for Mombasa County, the Honorable Abdul Samad, honorable members, good afternoon. Your Excellency, allow me to first take this opportunity to thank you for having afforded time out of your busy schedule to join us as members of the National Assembly in this post-election conference. It's not lost on us, Your Excellency, that since 2013, when our former President Uhuru Kenyatta attended the first post-election conference, or rather seminar, this is the only other post-election seminar that has been graced by the presidency, and we welcome you and thank you for having found time to join us. Allow me to, Your Excellency, to take this opportunity to profoundly thank all the members of the National Assembly and our staff in Parliament for also having afforded time from their otherwise very busy schedules during the recess period. And you will appreciate, Your Excellency, that these members took leave from their long recess to be able to be here in Mombasa for close to 2 weeks, first for the induction workshop last week, and this week for this post-election conference. Your Excellency, this post-election conference comes at a very good time because it comes towards the tail end of our long recess after the first session of the 13th Parliament. And just at the nick of time before we resume Parliament in the next 2 weeks or so. And Your Excellency, as you are well aware, having served as a member of Parliament, the session that we are going into, this session beginning in the next 2 weeks, is usually the most busy session of any Parliament. As my brother and colleague, Honorable 𝗣𝗢𝗦𝗧 has mentioned, we'll get into the budget cycle and the finance bill, and it's a very busy season for Parliament. And indeed, this seminar then comes at a very good time to be able to equip all members of Parliament with the knowledge and the skills to be able to deal with all issues that will come before them for deliberation on the floor of Parliament. That's why I took time, honorable members, to thank you for having afforded that time. As you're already aware, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association that has kindly hosted this seminar together with the Parliamentary National Assembly's leadership, CPA serves to connect and to develop, promote and support parliamentarians and their staff in the advancement of parliamentary ideals by identifying benchmarks of good governance and people-centered legislatures. Your Excellency, the transient nature of our parliament, especially in this country, behoves, Honorable President, that we have seminars like this to be able to build capacity among us members. And I say the transient nature, Honorable Speaker and Your Excellency the President, of our Parliament. In the last many years, we've had only less than 50% of members being re-elected into Parliament. But Your Excellency, the 13th Parliament is an exception and has reversed this otherwise not very good trend in our country. During the last elections in August 2022, a total of 192 members were re-elected, representing 55% of a return rate. 22 of these returning members served in the 11th Parliament or in earlier parliaments, like the Honorable Chairperson of Speaker's Panel, the Honorable Member for Dadaab. It is also not worthwhile noting, Your Excellency, that the balance in the House is steadily peaking in terms of gender balance. And out of the members that were elected in this assembly, 81 female members comprising of 47 county women representatives, 28 elected single-member constituency MPs, and 6 nominated members are of the female gender. This representing 23% of the total membership of the House, and therefore slightly short of the 10% to achieve the 1/3 gender rule constitutional threshold. Your Excellency, aware that a number of us are first-time members. This forum is also very suitable for interaction, for experience sharing, and we've already had that opportunity from many of our resource persons who have been able to speak to us this morning, and also for expectation management on legislative discourse as a member of parliament. Honorable members, we are here to equip each other with basic knowledge on parliamentary practices and procedures, and to be exposed on how to effectively discharge our constitutional mandate. And I want to believe that the ripple effect of what we will learn from this seminar at the end of this week is better governance and service delivery to the people of Kenya. As the leader of majority in the National Assembly, I wish to assure you that we will be able to relate the new knowledge to the business of the House, both in committees and in the plenary of the House. We must rise, as the leader of minority said, above self to safeguard the welfare of our nation and realize the people's expectations of their elected representatives. This is the underpinning principle of any democracy that has regard for good governance and continuous improvement of the welfare of its people through their elected representatives. Your Excellency, it is undisputed that governments all over the world exist to serve their people. And parliaments, in effect, act as a principal lawmaking institution that is charged with the legislative function, hence setting the boundaries within which any government, including you as Your Excellency, will operate. It is my conviction that this seminar will fortify strategic interventions for adoption by the legislature to address the emerging issues in the delivery of its mandate and underpin governance in an effective and robust manner, while having citizen needs at the core of everything that we do. Honorable members, politics for us, because we are elected as politicians, is a way of life for each member assembled here today. And I'll tell you, members, in my experience as a ranking member of the National Assembly, is that as much as we cannot fail to play politics in every matter, the voice of reason is always and must always prevail on every member where the people's welfare is concerned. And as much as we will hold very firm political party positions, we must never allow grandstanding to come in the way of well-intended and noble decisions that the National Assembly make in line with our constitutional mandate to serve the people that we come to represent. Your Excellency, I want to assure you that this is a spirit I will endeavor to have matters resolved across the divide with our minority party colleagues, and similarly, and more importantly, we must, as the National Assembly, come together to play our rightful role to ensure effective oversight of the executive at all times by confirming that the actions of government are addressing emergent needs and that good governance is entrenched in our society and indeed in our country. It is also not lost on me, Your Excellency, that a pragmatic review of the National Assembly standing orders is critical to the realization of your government's agenda for this great nation. We shall initiate a review of the rules of procedure in order to align them to the government's agenda while protecting the independence of the National Assembly to safeguard its constitutional mandate and public interest. And I must report to Your Excellency that indeed the relevant committees have already begun work to review some of these standing orders, including the provision to allow cabinet secretaries to appear before the House and some of the other issues that the leader of minority has spoken to. Finally, honorable members, the range of topics, as the Deputy Speaker has indicated, that will be covered in this seminar is akin to a crash program or a crash course on all matters that you as an effective member of the National Assembly must be versed with. I won't take a lot of your valuable time enumerating the content of what you'll be going through in the course of a week. But suffice it to say that I am sure we shall leave this hall better equipped with practical experience and knowledge of what an elected leader, on what makes an elected leader like yourselves and myself become a global citizen, a servant leader of the people, and an expert decision maker on all public affairs. Honorable members, the leader of minority, the Honorable 𝗣𝗢𝗦𝗧-𝗘𝗟𝗘𝗖𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗢 has challenged us on what the 10th Parliament is remembered for, especially in the enactment of the new Constitution. And he has posed a question to us: what shall we as the 13th Assembly be remembered for? He's also enumerated the numerous challenges that face our people and some of the interventions that we should be looking into as members of Parliament. I want to believe we have the capacity, we have the will, and we have the determination to make the lives of our people better than we found them. And I just want to say, if you would agree with me, honorable members, knowing the suffering that our people are undergoing today, knowing the kind of economy that we have come into office under, it is a challenge to us that this Parliament must and should be remembered as that assembly that restored the economic dignity of our people and restored hope in their country. And I want to end by challenging you, honorable members, that we must be able to take our rightful position as members of Parliament to represent our people, to oversight government, but as I said, not to ever allow grandstanding and firm political party positions to get on the way of what is right for the people of Kenya. Let us always stand for what is right, what will improve the lot of our people, and I believe we have that capacity even to review and look at all the issues that the leader of minority has spoken to, including what you have already done with the enactment of the IBC Amendment Bill that has already been signed into law, that was enacted by this Assembly as an amendment bill of a law that was also passed in the 12th Assembly. With those very many remarks, Your Excellency, thank you again for attending this seminar, and we look forward to working with your government, to oversighting your government, to ensure that indeed even your government serves the interest of the people, and the people are the core of all our engagements with your government. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members, for that opportunity.
And now it's my, thank you, Leader of Majority, and now it's my humble duty to invite the Speaker of the National Assembly and Chairperson of the Parliamentary Service Commission, the Right Honorable Moses Wetangula. Karibu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of our Defense Forces, Prime Cabinet Secretary, our resource people led by Mr. Twigg from CPA, our majority and minority leaders, deputies, the distinguished Governor for Mombasa County 001, commissioners of the Parliamentary Service Commission from the National Assembly, chairs of various committees and your vice chairs, distinguished honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, we take the opportunity to welcome you to this post-election seminar being held here in our tourist city of Mombasa. This seminar is not just a get-together by members of Parliament to engage in a talking shop. It is absolutely critical to fresh men and fresh women in the House. Parliamentarians who have come for the first time will have tremendous opportunities to learn on how to discharge their triple mandate of representation, legislation, and oversight. For the old-timers, this may look rhetorical, but for the new members, this is novel. And we come here, Your Excellency, to reaffirm our commitment to our republic, to our democracy, to our constitutionalism, and above all, to our duty as Parliament to understand and appreciate at all times that the centrality of our 2010 Constitution are the people of Kenya. And it's the people of Kenya that we all, including yourself, Your Excellency, have taken oath of office to serve. As Parliament, we will play our role. We will pass laws that are pro-people, laws that will enhance the change that we desire and require in the country. As a Parliament, we will help you to ensure that the resources that the people of Kenya place in the hands of the government through taxes are put to good use. And as a Parliament, I'll encourage our members to ensure that you represent the people who elected you individually and collectively with vigor, with confidence, and with utmost effect. Your Excellency, in the last week, there was a minor standoff in this seminar because of the delayed disbursement of CDF. Yours truly here came down, met the members, and we discussed very candidly, having engaged the executive back in Nairobi, and now the matter is behind us. We have a clear roadmap from the executive on how to disburse CDF timely so that members can be able to deal with situations that require the use of those resources. We equally dealt with the issue of the Affirmative Action Fund for Women, called 𝗣𝗢𝗦𝗧, and also the timely disbursement of those funds. The executive has done its bit last week, but much more will be done, I have no doubt, in ensuring that CDF and 𝗣𝗢𝗧 are readily available to help the populace. What I want to assure you, honorable members, and this I speak with authority because we have consulted widely and deeply, is that CDF is here to stay. And it's incumbent upon you as members of Parliament to engage meaningfully and effectively to ensure that the irritations you keep getting from vexatious litigants going to court on each and every issue at every twist and turn to frustrate the management of public resources that help the ordinary people must be put to rest by ring-fencing these funds in the Constitution. Because the bogey boy of the litigation is always the constitutionality of the funds. Make them constitutional beyond any reasonable doubt, and the vexatious litigants will be run out of business very quickly. Thirdly, Your Excellency, this seminar is good and rich because for the first timers, they are going to be exposed to a lot of issues on what is expected of them. They have to learn on how to deal with budgets. They have to learn on the limits and extent of their privileges. They have to learn on how to be effective representatives. They have to learn on how to be effective oversighters of the executive. And above all, this is a mold that takes you to be great statesmen and women in our republic. And as I told you last week, noblesse oblige. Nobility carries responsibility. So as members of parliament, we expect nothing less from you but conduct with extreme and absolutely admirable and unimpeachable decorum. Because you represent people, you carry their aspirations. So as your speaker, I want to encourage you. Even when you want to actively disagree with an issue, it is demeaning and an affront to the title you carry for you to raise your voice unnecessarily and beyond reasonable measure. We can disagree in a very, very soft way. I always say you must choose to engage in megaphone diplomacy, and we shout at each other from the top of KICC, or we whisper into the right ears to get the right issues done. Both will give you the same effect, but the whispering will give you a better effect. I want to end, Your Excellency, by encouraging your government that these members of parliament are a resource for you. Your agenda will only get effect and meaning when it is turned into legislation. Any regulations from the executive take effect and meaning when they are approved by parliament. And as a parliament, we'll be able to work hand in hand to ensure that the people of Kenya get what they deserve, get what they need, and live an incrementally better life than the time you came into power. We as Parliament have a cardinal duty to defend the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution, and we are going to do so without any fear or favor. Whatever you have sent to us to deal with is already before committees. Honorable members, as I finish, I have taken the extra step recently to put a team together because of the myriad of litigations that face Parliament on the most frivolous issues. I have brought together a team of senior lawyers in the House: Otienda Molo, Peter Kaluma, Murugara, John Makali, Wakili from Katanga, Osoro, and many others. And those who are not in the team, you may volunteer if you wish to join, so that you constantly deal with issues as they emerge, so that we are not held back by decisions of courts because we are not representing ourselves well. We are going to make sure that we give those pro bono services, and those members have assured me, Your Excellency, they'll give pro bono services that they head on and run out of town vexatious litigants as soon as is practically possible. It is now my humble pleasure, honorable members, and when His Excellency finishes addressing us, we are a bit too many probably to have a group picture. We probably will ask the leadership and our resource people, and of course the Cabinet Secretary and the Governor, to have a photo opportunity with the Head of State. And then His Excellency will join you for lunch. And those of you who have any sticky issues, you know the President has been a member of Parliament. He was there before CDF, and he was there during CDF. He knows the difference between the two. So you actually are preaching to the converted. And when you preach to the converted, it may end up spending our time badly because he knows exactly what CDF means. Your Excellency, it is now my humble pleasure to invite you to come and talk to these distinguished members of Parliament of the 13th Parliament.
Tafadhali tuketi chini, asanteni sana. Thank you very much, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honorable 𝗦𝗘𝗠𝗎𝗢𝗧-𝗘𝗟𝗡, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Mr. 𝗤𝗙𝗎𝗢𝗙𝗢𝗙, Leader of Majority, 𝗘𝗟𝗙𝗦𝗬𝗎𝗧-𝗜𝗢𝗡 Anthony, the Leader of Minority, 𝗤𝗙𝗎𝗦𝗧-𝗘𝗟𝗘𝗘𝗖𝗧, the whips, honorable members, good afternoon. Hamjambo. I am truly happy to be in your midst. And before I make my small remarks, let me first take this opportunity to congratulate each and every one member who has been elected to the 13th Parliament. Honorable members, I repeat to say congratulations because I am a practicing politician. I have been elected a few times, and I know how difficult it is to persuade people to elect one. So I have tremendous respect for elected officials. Congratulations to all of you. Congratulations to those who earned the respect of their political parties to be nominated. And let me say from the onset that I look forward to working with all of you. I join you, honorable members, on this National Assembly Day at this event of tremendous importance as you undertake deliberations, reflections, consultations, and other discourses related to your mandate, which is essential to citizen well-being and our collective national progress. Since my last encounter with you, when I addressed a joint sitting of Parliament, significant developments have unfolded in our constantly evolving context. The role of the legislature has continued to assert itself in highly important, far-reaching ways. The need for a clear, rational, sustainable, and clear framework of engagement between the three arms of government has come out in very sharp focus. The National Assembly has, over the brief period, considered and passed legislative items that are critical for the nation, robustly vetted and approved various appointments of state officers, including cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, and the Inspector General of the Police Service. At the same time, you have concluded important internal agendas, including the formation of House committees, and it is my special honor to respectfully acknowledge the presence of the chairpersons and vice chairpersons who are in our midst. Pongezi sana waheshimiwa for being given the mandate to run the affairs of the various committees of the House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and honorable members for the priority you have accorded the government agenda in the House. As a result, we were able to expeditiously constitute the executive, conclude critical legislation, consider and approve various nominees for appointment to public office. The approval of the regulations which brought the Hustler Fund into operation, thereby realizing our financial inclusion agenda, is of particular historic significance. Similarly, the first legislation to receive my assent, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission number 1 of 2023, is designed to provide a framework for us with close parliamentary oversight to sustain the incremental perfection of our electoral regime. And in so doing, the National Assembly played its part in setting the stage for us to deliver on our commitment to undertake a radical socio-economic transformation with a view to uplifting Kenyans and all our people. I am therefore immensely privileged to have this singular opportunity to convey my gratitude to you in person and let you know that I do not take your consideration for agenda of the Kenya government for granted. Thank you very much. It is by working together in this spirit that we, as leaders, affirm the hope that Kenya's bright future can be guaranteed through dedicated service of our shared commitment. Mr. Speaker, I recently conveyed a list of additional names of persons whose suitability the House shall consider once it resumes. I request honorable members to perform their duty expeditiously to enable successful nominees assume their roles without delay. This is essential for our good governance. As set out in my address at the joint sitting of the House and reiterated in my memorandum to the Speaker, we see transparency and accountability as vital components of good governance, effective delivery, and the legitimacy of the executive. For this reason, the government is committed to the radical enhancement of its accountability to the people of Kenya through their democratically elected representatives in Parliament. In keeping with this commitment to enhancing government accountability, I have formally requested Parliament to formulate within its procedures a mechanism for cabinet secretaries to appear before the House and give account to the people's representatives. I am steadfast in the conviction that articulating government policy and answering questions from the floor of the House is fundamental to the transparency and accountability of government. Properly effected, this framework will enhance parliamentary effectiveness by providing an optimal convergence of oversight and representation. It is important to emphasize, which I do, that the measure I request does not require any amendment to the Constitution and does, on the contrary, fulfill the threshold of accountability mandated by the Constitution. I therefore respectfully reiterate my request to Parliament and urge honourable members to move with speed in effecting the appropriate amendment of the standing orders once the House resumes, so that Article 1534B, that states that Cabinet Secretaries shall provide Parliament with full and regular reports concerning matters under their control, is actually effected. And with a lot of respect, let me make this argument. I was privileged to be part of the constitution-making process. And we had an opportunity to decide whether this country would go parliamentary or presidential. The people of Kenya decided unanimously that they wanted to elect their president. So we have crossed the Rubicon on matters parliamentary or presidential. We've crossed that Rubicon. What we need to do is to refine the system of government that the people of Kenya decided, the presidential system, to refine it so that it is much more accountable. When I sent the request to Parliament for you, members, honorable members, to consider cabinet secretaries answering questions directly to members of parliament. It was not an issue of trying to renegotiate the constitution. It is an issue of accountability. I am a very strong believer that a government is as good as the accountability mechanism that has been put in place. All I am asking, honorable members, is for you to better, much more effectively, much more efficiently, to be able to discharge your responsibility of oversight over government. Ordinarily, an administration would be running away from that act. But I am presenting my government to you, honorable members, to oversight, to ask questions, to interrogate, so that we can have a better country for all of us. To affirm that we are well and truly on a new trajectory in legislative management, I cannot fail to mention and commend the recent facilitation by the House of the work of majority and minority caucuses outside the scope of formal parliamentary business. I recently attended a meeting of the majority caucus and was able to observe and confirm the value of this new practice. It is a welcome innovation, and I salute the imagination deployed by the House in achieving this outfit. I hope Opio and I will also welcome me to the minority caucus, maybe to have a conversation. I indicated at the onset that this event is critical and of fundamental importance. By design, Parliament is a consequential institution of state. A democratic government is underpinned by a representative assembly. The people, who are sovereign, speak to government on a continuous basis through Parliament. Through their members of Parliament, the people ask questions, find answers, audit the exercise of power and resources by their authorized officials, authorize the sharing of resources, interrogate, and moderate public policy. In our progressive democratic dispensation, the government is not feasible in any shape or form without a duly constituted parliament. It is clear that the robustness of our democracy, effectiveness of government, viability of the state, and the feasibility of development depend to a considerable extent to the existence and effective functioning of a strong parliament. The role of parliament, as set out in Article 94, outlines the fundamental scope of the institution. The role of the National Assembly, as set out in Article 95, goes further to establish the vital implications of this indispensable institution. Members of Parliament are therefore state officers who individually and collectively perform duties and functions that go to the heart of governance and democracy. The Constitution has invested heavy demands upon your legislative oversight and representative roles. At the same time, it is most remarkable that there exists no standard curriculum, education, or training institution to facilitate legislators in performing their functions. The principle of sovereignty of the people dictates that no barrier should fetter its full exercise, and that whoever the people elect must be deemed fit for purpose and promptly thrown into the deep end of complex, diverse, often specialized technical legislative activity with monumental national implications. I know from experience that how Parliament fares collectively is a function of the capability and efforts of individual legislators. I also know that effective representation of our constituencies is highly challenging and that at all times we work under significant resource constraints. Nevertheless, members of Parliament quickly adapt to the pace of national service at the parliamentary level by principally exercising an insatiable curiosity and also through peer learning. In this gathering, there exists precious nuggets of wisdom and invaluable learnings from the experience of colleagues who are sitting here, especially those who are ranking members. This post-election seminar is therefore particularly welcome since it provides a more structured forum for the exchange of insights, experiences, techniques, and contemporary knowledge on the conduct of parliamentary affairs. I have noted that your engagements will cover such critical matters as parliamentary procedures, budgeting, as well as powers and privileges. These go to the heart of your role as parliamentarians and will simultaneously fulfill the functions of a welcome new learning for debunked members and a timely refresher course for the veterans. Equally important, this seminar is an opportunity to forge useful networks with colleagues as well as distinguished guests who are present here, including the gentlemen from Commonwealth who are visiting from various other jurisdictions. By design, our parliament represents the face of Kenya. Its diversity is unrivaled as a perennial feature of the institution. Every portion of Kenya, as well as every community, belief, shade of opinion, and occupation are represented. The representatives themselves are equally diverse, with members hailing from innumerable professional backgrounds and walks of life. Among our members of parliament are lawyers, doctors, engineers, including Sudi, hospitality professionals, teachers, former military and police personnel, administrators, trade unionists, and businessmen in various networks and sectors. Yeah, somebody introduced to me Sudi as Engineer Sudi, so I was just... I celebrate this diversity and encourage you as leaders to embrace it as a platform to champion a Kenya that is strong and united, yet proudly diverse and inclusive. We must be more intentional in order to make this tremendous endowment count for the betterment of our nation. I am further encouraged to witness the fact that your appetite for diversity is not restricted to our local situation. You have partnered with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association to host this seminar and brought on board facilitators from South Africa, the United Kingdom, Australia and Canada, as well as the United States of America through the good offices of the National Democratic Institute and the International Republican Institute. The objectives of this seminar are aligned with long-standing collaboration between Kenya and the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, as well as the agenda for the development of parliamentary democracy that we share throughout the Commonwealth family. Mr. Speaker, one outcome I look forward to with great anticipation is the emergence of a robust ethos of strong individual and collective parliamentary performance is cognizant that Parliament, the national executive, and the judiciary are ultimately arms of one government. Let me repeat that. One outcome that I look forward to with great anticipation is the emergence of a robust ethos of strong individual and collective parliamentary performance that is cognizant that Parliament, the national executive, and the judiciary are ultimately arms of one government. It is essential that we make significant progress in building a constructive synergy among the arms of government, which scrupulously observes constitutional boundaries, checks, and balances. At the same time, we must be capable of coordinating effectively towards the realization of our shared aspiration, the well-being of every citizen and their socio-economic uplift through a radical transformation governance and in our economy. In order to achieve effective synergy between the arms of government, I have assigned the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, the role of coordinating and liaising with Parliament on the legislative agenda of government. And I have done so realizing the importance of there being a firm, definite link between the executive and Parliament that facilitates the work of Parliament, especially on requests from the executive. I have also assigned the Honorable Attorney General, Honorable Justin Muturi, the counterpart liaison role with the judiciary. I hope, dear honorable members, that you see, as I do, a collaborative framework along these lines is a viable means of deploying our leadership capabilities to address the issues that matter to Kenyans. It is in this spirit of effective coordination and constructive synergy that I wish to address the matter of dispute management. We are a proudly diverse but inclusive democracy. Parliament represents every shade of opinion in Kenya. Differences, disagreements, and divergent standpoints are inevitable. Something would be terribly wrong if we agreed all the time on everything. How we handle disagreement goes a long way to demonstrate our grasp of the parliamentary mandate. The name parliament originates from an old French word for speaking. Parliament is the national forum where the people, through their representatives, reason together on a continuous basis. Speaking with each other is the essence of the institution. Through debate, consultation, and negotiation over every matter until an acceptable position is reached. Parliament is not a place for picketing or heckling or holding demonstrations or holding other institutions at ransom. I must respectfully observe that the emerging practice of litigating disagreements through the courts not only contradicts the essential purpose of parliamentary institutions, it demonstrates the failure of Parliament at the level of institution and at the member level. The people elected members of the National Assembly to perform their work through Parliament, not the judiciary. If the people had wanted their representatives to litigate their matters in the courts, the Constitution would have provided for the elections of magistrates or judges, not parliamentarians. What I'm trying to say is the following, that there will always be issues, and I want to encourage the leadership of Parliament and the collective body of members of Parliament, both in the National Assembly and in the Senate, that we cannot continue to take our disagreements to the judiciary. If anything, we are surrendering the legitimacy of the houses to the judiciary. And the only beneficiaries of these litigations are those people the Speaker was talking about. the vexatious litigants are the only beneficiaries, and of course, the good people. I do not want to run into trouble with lawyers, but they are the only other beneficiaries of those litigations. So I would really encourage Parliament, if Parliament actually has the power to constitute itself into a court, how does one court take another court to court? You know, it really must be something that Parliament must really think about. And members from across the divide should be able to provide leadership in a manner that we can be able to create consensus on issues that affect the Houses of Parliament. It is time for the leadership of Parliament in both houses and at the majority and minority parties to take a clear stand on this matter and decisively move to discourage the prosecution of parliamentary business in courts. There are some courses of action which automatically fall off our set of strategic options once we properly internalize our purpose, role, and function. For parliamentarians, court litigation is such a course of action. Let us resolve our issues within Parliament. As earlier observed, the National Assembly is essential to the proper functioning of government and the achievements of development aspirations. It holds immense power with fundamental implications over every dimension of national endeavor. This power, however, must be exercised with prudence, restraint, and a strong sense of sustainability, especially as pertains as budgeting. I agree entirely that we must cut the cloth that fits us. We cannot continuously have an oversized budget and imagine that there will be some miracles that will happen. When I came into office, we had a budget that we needed to borrow 900 billion. And I thought that was reckless and irresponsible. I cut it down to 600 billion. I will be presenting shortly our revised budget that will actualize that commitment that I made to the country. The context of national budgetary decision-making, balancing limited resources against the demanding needs for equitable allocation and avoidable obligations, makes hard and unpopular decisions inevitable. The scope of our budgetary ambitions is firmly dictated by our ability to finance it through available revenue-raising measures. Service delivery depends on appropriation of available resources, and it is quite clear that not every item we deem urgent and necessary will be financed. And when I say available revenue-raising measures, I mean that each and every one of us, once we agree on a tax regime, each and every one of us must pay their part of taxes. We cannot continue to operate in a space where those in power exempt themselves from paying taxes using all manner of instruments, while those who do not have as much power pay tax. All I am saying is that the good people who are used to exempting themselves from paying tax, their day is up. Every citizen must pay tax. That's all I am saying. And it doesn't matter. Even if they sponsor demonstrations so that they don't pay tax, I want to promise them they will pay tax. There's no more exemption. This country is not the animal farm where some are more equal than others. We are going to have a society where every citizen carries a fair share of our burden to raise taxes. I am not talking about additional taxes. I am talking about taxes that have been agreed upon by Parliament and signed into law. We must therefore be especially prudent, by which I mean that it is our duty to avoid increase in budgetary allocations regardless of financing capacity, and to endeavor at all times to use our offices as servants of the people to ensure that government lives within its means. And that is a collective responsibility, both by the executive and by the legislature, that we ensure that our budget-making process is aligned to the resources that we have. This calls for us to bring back our expenditures within sustainable limits. Our recurrent expenditure currently outstrips revenue collection. You will recall that in our last interaction, I directed the National Treasury to reduce budgetary allocation, as I said, in this year's budget by about 300 billion. The reductions are going to be included in the supplementary budget for your consideration once the House resumes, and I am counting on your understanding and leadership to minimize non-essential expenditure. As pertains the NGCDF, you don't need to convince me about the importance of decentralized funds in meeting the everyday needs of ordinary citizens at the grassroots. I was a member of Parliament when there was no CDF. I was a member of Parliament when we introduced CDF. I know the difference. It is like day and night. I understand the pressure that you are under in regard to this matter, and I am also aware that the National Treasury has communicated its commitment to a disbursement schedule that is realistically aligned to revenue projections and actual collections. I therefore ask you to be understanding and to work with what is actually possible. And I will be as candid as I can be so that we don't overpromise and we don't underdeliver. I reiterate that we must take a stand and play our part in enhancing budgetary sustainability and minimize fiscal risks by aligning our demands with the best budgeting principles within the limits of our budget policy. Due to the prevailing drought, our people are undergoing food stress. We are taking measures to alleviate the situation by distributing basic food supplies to the most vulnerable in affected populations. It is our plan to support our farmers through provision of adequate farm inputs, including affordable fertilizer, mechanization, technical and extension services, as a key priority. And let me say, it is true, we have a serious situation of cost of living. We didn't get here overnight. We got here because of a series of decisions that were not made in the right direction. We will not get out of it by magic. We will get out of it by clear plans, interventions. And I want to promise you, members, that we have already registered 5 million farmers across the country. We intend to work with our farmers to grow our food so that we do not become slaves of imports from other countries when we have farmers who can do this for us. All the farmers are asking is to work with government to ensure that they can produce food for our nation. I know that the National Assembly has and will continue to receive reports detailing the manner and extent of environmental harm occasioned in various parts of the country through various reckless and illegal acts. Deforestation and pollution are among the leading practices. I recently launched a national tree planting program aimed at growing at least 15 billion trees by the year 2032. I urge you to join the movement to green Kenya by leading tree planting campaigns in your constituencies. Additionally, I encourage you to be mindful of the imperative to prioritize the conservation of wetlands and inland water bodies, including rivers and swamps, which are critical for our water needs. I have been greatly encouraged to note your strong participation in regional and Pan-African forums. This is an aspect of your activity that deserves greater focus as an integral part of your functions. The starting point is to arrive at an understanding and articulation of the East African community and other regional frameworks as platforms for us to enrich our sovereignty by projecting our national values and embracing our brothers and sisters throughout our region and continent into networks of collaboration and cooperation for mutual benefit. It is your various interparliamentary encounters, therefore, that will make our values visible as an integral part of our national brand and extend our networks of solidarity and goodwill across our region. As I conclude, I wish to reiterate the Government of Kenya's commitment to sustain a high level of effective, impactful, and transformational engagement with Parliament, since this is key to the achievement of our vision for Kenya. To underscore the seriousness of this commitment, I have designated a principal secretary solely responsible for parliamentary affairs under the Prime Cabinet Secretary, a liaison and coordination function. And I'm sure the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi will be speaking to you later. I intend to honor your invitation to forums like this in furtherance of our intention to enhance synergy among arms of government in order to deliver a more and a better Kenya within a short time. And let me commit to this August gathering that we will continue to explore avenues of building synergy between what you do and what the executive is doing. And I have no intention whatsoever to compromise the oversight role or the independence of Parliament. Parliament must always defend its independence and must always act independently as is required by the Constitution, as we do in the executive and as we do and as the judiciary does, all understanding that we serve the same people, but we have to do so from different platforms. It is now my pleasant duty, honorable members, to declare this seminar officially open. I wish you very fruitful deliberations. May the good Lord bless you. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. President, for that very inspiring speech. A round of applause for Mr. President. And allow me, members, briefly, going forward for the rest of the afternoon, the program will be as follows. As soon as we finish singing the national anthem now, we shall remain in the room and allow His Excellency the President to be escorted out of here by the Right Honorable Speaker, together with the select 9 members that the Speaker had mentioned earlier. Thereafter, we shall all leave and move to the dining room and be seated, and then the President shall join us for lunch shortly thereafter. And after our lunch, honorable members, we shall resume at 3 p.m. and the first topic shall be led by the Right Honorable Prime CS, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, which will start at 3 p.m. on time. Thank you, honorable members. We may now have the national anthem. Let's remain standing for the national anthem.